Hello, and welcome to another episode of Best Top 5. I'm your host, Best Guy. Today I'm talking about actors who almost got the role. Actors must love when they're auditioning and they just know it in the back of their head that they got this, that they were made for that part. Like Arnold Schwarzenegger as a Terminator, or Stallone as Rocky. But not all of these films turn out that way. There's always someone who could have played the part or who almost got the chance to play the part and just didn't. So that's what this video is going to be about. So let's kick it off with number 5. Number 5 is Sean Connery in Lord of the Rings. He had auditioned for the part of Gandalf, but he just didn't understand the part. He had a similar problem when they gave him the script for The Matrix. He was going to play Morpheus. He didn't understand the script. So he didn't understand The Matrix, he didn't understand Lord of the Rings, and it was because of these two films that he did not take the part. He went on and starred in a movie that he also didn't understand very much, The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. He took that part because he really felt the regret for not taking those two other films. And I mean, I like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, but it's not a very good movie. Of course, the role eventually went to Ian McKellen, who did an amazing job with "You Shall Not Pass." That's my terrible Ian McKellen impersonation. I wonder how Sean Connery would have done. You shall not pass. It's terrible. Awful. I just don't think he would have been good for that part. The thing with Sean Connery, I don't want to say he lacks imagination, but once you get to a certain age, you don't understand a lot of things. You know, it happens. And you either adapt or you retire. And in the case of Sean Connery, it was because of these two films that he did not accept the roles. He went on to do League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. It became a failure. He just simply retired because he just doesn't understand Hollywood anymore. Number 4, if you follow Will Smith on his YouTube channel, he talked about the fact that he was once given a pitch to star in The Matrix. The Wachowski siblings came up to him and said, "Hey, you know, we want to do this thing with like a bunch of cameras, and you're going to be floating, and you're going to be kicking." This is literally how they pitched the story to Will Smith. And he said, "No, I think I'll pass." So he passed on the role. At one point, they wanted Brandon Lee, but by the time they even considered Brandon Lee, he had already passed away. They really wanted Will Smith, and Morpheus would have been Val Kilmer or Sean Connery, who I mentioned in number 5. So Will Smith didn't understand The Matrix. He says he regrets it. He would go on instead to do Wiki Wow Wow West. He did Wow Wow West, which was a box office failure. I like Wow Wow West, you know, shoot me, you know, I like it, but it's no Matrix. He did do us a favor because Keanu Reeves, he was perfect for that role, and it's a movie that's done really well. It would have been interesting if Brandon Lee had still been alive, if he had done the role. I think he would have done something really interesting. So let's go into number 3. So most people, when they think about James Bond, they think about, hey, he has to be a British actor, or maybe Irish, but never American or Australian. And I say Australian because George Lazenby ended up doing the part. But American, never. You know, even though many American actors were considered at one point, like Hugh Grant, I think even Marlon Brando at one point was considered just as a conversation. The one actor who actually auditioned and shot scenes from the movie was James Brolin. He was going to star in the movie Octopussy. Roger Moore, by the 1980s, he really wanted to retire from the role. He had already done Live and Let Die, The Man with the Golden Gun, The Spy Who Loved Me, and Moonraker. So his next film would have been Octopussy. And he was already considering retiring the role. MGM Studios, Harry Saltzman, and Albert Broccoli, they were looking for someone else to replace him. So they auditioned James Brolin. He was going to star in the film. They have him do an action sequence, they have him do a love scene, and he wasn't bad. I think he would have been a good James Bond. The only problem, of course, is the accent. He doesn't even try doing the British accent, he just does the American accent. It would have been interesting, but Roger Moore changed his mind, and they ended up shooting with Roger Moore. So, and it's curious because that was during the time where Sean Connery decided to come back to this James Bond franchise too, so they had 2 Bond movies at the same time, which is a little confusing for those who don't know about the rights of the James Bond movies, but that's for a separate video. Number 2 is pretty interesting because I remember seeing this on the special features for the original Indiana Jones box set. I don't know if this is on the Blu-ray, it might be, I'm not sure, don't quote me, but I remember seeing an interview where George Lucas didn't want to cast Harrison Ford in the part because he had already casted him as Han Solo. So he was going to become his favorite actor to work with, kind of like Martin Scorsese with Robert De Niro. And he didn't want that. He wanted to give the opportunity to someone else. And Steven Spielberg was like, okay, sure, let's try another actor. And they screen tested a lot of actors, and the one that they actually were gonna go with is Tom Selleck. Tom Selleck was going to play the part of Indiana Jones. And I don't think he would have been a bad Indiana Jones. Funny thing, you can actually get a glimpse of how he would have been as Indiana Jones if you watch the movie High Road to China. High Road to China and Lasseter. Those are two movies that he did because he didn't get the part for Indiana Jones. They're very similar adventures, but they are not straight rip-offs like other movies like Alan Quatermain in The Lost City of Gold, which technically speaking, Alan Quatermain's a character that would go on to inspire Indiana Jones. But that movie was released by Canon trying to rip off Indiana Jones. But getting back to Tom Selleck, I don't think Tom Selleck would have been a bad Indiana Jones. Of course, Harrison Ford is perfect. He's literally the reason why we have such a lucrative franchise, and they're going to continue milking it in one way, shape, or form. Number one is very, very funny and interesting because this actor would have been terrible in the part. Arnold Schwarzenegger was not the first choice for the T-800. He was the first choice for, believe it or not, Kyle Reese. He was going to be the savior who comes back and has sex with Linda Hamilton's character. Can you imagine? I traveled to time to be with you. And he passes his big hands over her, caressing her. That would have been awful. But no, they eventually realized that he should play the T-800. But the original actor, this is before they cast Michael Biehn as Kyle Reese, the original actor who was going to play the T-800 is no other than O.J. Simpson. O.J. Simpson, you can look it up, it's on the DVD, and I'm not sure if it's on the Blu-ray, but I remember on one of the first DVDs of the Terminator, in the behind the scenes, they talk about the fact that they wanted O.J. Simpson, and they did concept art, and they were actually considering him to star in the film. But after they did the audition, they realized he was just too nice. He doesn't come across as a killer. So they instead went with Arnold. I really cannot see O.J. Simpson as the T-800. I can see him as a killer, but not as a T-800. So I hope you enjoyed this list. These are the top 5 actors who almost got the role, but didn't. I'm your host, Vest Guy. Make sure to like, subscribe, share the video. Let me know in the top comment section down below if there is a movie I didn't get to mention. Yeah, just do what you want to do, share and all that other good stuff.
Live your life.
Live your life,